Welcome to the Haunted Hacker podcast number. I don't know, Mike, what number do you want to give it?
Oh, shit. What was the last one? 199?
Something like that. We've had them in the 300s, 200s, whatever number you want. It doesn't matter.
69.
Okay.
No.
Any random number.
200.
All right.
Yeah. Nice and even.
Haunted Hacker podcast number 200. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. I am speaking this month for a group in the UK, also in South Africa for a CISO group. And pretty soon, I believe in March, Risk 360 is having me and Chris Roberts, Luke McComey, and Mike Weber on a podcast extravaganza is what they're calling it, I guess. Other than that, not a whole lot to report. Everything's going good. The group in general, the Haunted Hacker group, is growing, and I'm starting a business and a nonprofit, not related to the Haunted Hacker except for the charity. But the charity is going to be Hackers for Vets, and we're going to raise money to get scholarships for different certifications to help transition vets get their foot in the door. And the consulting company I'm starting is going to be something completely different, something new, and I think you'll probably like it. Other than that, I don't have anything else. So today we have Mike Curnow. This is his second time on the podcast. Known friend, good friend of the Haunted Hacker, and a really interesting guy. So Mike, what have you been up to since the last time that we spoke?
Yeah, so the last time that we did this was April of last year. It's been pretty busy. So my company, Deffoant Networks logo and here, just complete the ensemble. We have been working on a massive undertaking, where our initial goal was to create this awesome industrial networking service that allowed you to microsegment very easily, have cryptographic identities for all the devices on your network, allow you to segment, to do kind of unidirectional stuff as well if you needed to bridge networks going from like layer 3 up or something. But we actually realized that the ingredients we had allowed us to do a lot more. And so we have built a lot more networking protocols to facilitate an overlay network for the entire internet that can run services on it, kind of like the Tor network would. You can access things on it. Mm-hmm. And it is 100% completely zero trust, in the means that your laptop or desktop PC, whatever, all the way to every single node that facilitates that communication circuit to the thing that you're getting to on this overlay network, has to confirm their identities with each other. And this happens periodically. And every service that runs on each node will only run for nodes that have identified themselves. So we've been working on that for, since about April. Yeah. And we've got, we have alpha, we're in alpha right now. So we've got something working with Windows, which is a nice client. And then we are working on the same thing for Android. Can't say exactly when those will be out, but hopefully things have been going really good development wise, and we've also been working on some of the business stuff too. So hopefully we will be in beta with the public soon enough. And yeah, I can't really say a timeline. Sometimes these things move, but yeah, I've been really busy with that. ended up having a newborn in October.
Congratulations.
So that, thank you. Yeah, his name is Julian, after Dr. Julian Bashir,
Nice.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Yeah, he's the smartest guy on the show, so I figured it's a great name.
Cool.
For another son of mine. But yeah, I mean, really just those two things, but it's been a whopping undertaking between the two, and you know, all good though, like all good stuff happening.
Cool. And then you lay on top of on top of having a newborn and all the work you're doing, and taking a look at the issues that cybersecurity is having right now. And we talked briefly before the show about some of the stuff that we've seen and experienced, and we both have a laundry list of things that are pretty shocking, and things that don't necessarily give 2022 a bright start, I guess. So, I know Log4j was a big thing earlier this year, well, beginning of the year and going into January. And it seems like, at first I thought maybe this is one of those vulnerabilities like Heartbleed, right? That was complex, but everybody was vulnerable to it. That people weren't necessarily going to be able to just click a button and gain access. But with this one, it appeared that way, but we're starting to see a lot more exploitation on a lot more unpredicted types of devices and networks, I think. Tell me about your experience so far with Log4j and some of the stuff that you've seen.
So dealing with Log4j from my perspective has been more so looking at it from kind of a critical infrastructure lens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some stuff I do is working on civil engineering and critical infrastructure projects, mm-hmm. and creating security architecture that will eventually become a framework to carry out the most conducive deployment for a safe and secure industrial network deployment, or solution deployment, whatever the contract may be. And initially I had just kind of looked at Log4j as another one of those, oh, this is just like a software thing. Yeah, this is gonna, screw up your whatever desktop stuff, right? But really, it's extremely pervasive because of how ubiquitous Java is in a lot of things that are used, especially on the control side. I'll give a quick example. The Siemens CERT had on the 17th of this month, actually, so like 5 days ago, they published a document with their findings of all of their products that were vulnerable, and it is a long list. I want to say there's like I've got it pulled up here. Just scrolling through really quickly here, it looks like I want to say probably 45 or so, 45 or 50 products. And it's not an exact number, just, scrolling through, that's what it looks like to me, about 40 or 50 or so. And that scares me a lot, because working in the industrial controls arena, I know that a lot of the update cycles of like a manufacturing plant or a major transportation system, that stuff takes a long time. Like it becomes a project. It becomes a project that has to be bid on. There's all this time to get someone that can do the work and vet those people and have all the interviews with them. And then from there, all the testing that has to go on, the redundancies that have to be built to keep the mission critical systems and functions running, so that you can do these updates without really making that big of a dent in the operational output of whatever that entity is or that target is.
Right.
And I think it's going to be around for a long time. in the industrial space.
Yeah.
A second thing that also has been kind of keeping me up at night is connected vehicles. It's been recently documented. I think it was hold on, it was Trend Micro. Yeah, Trend Micro put out an article, one of their research articles, talking about electric vehicle supply equipment, which is basically like their charging stations. So electric vehicle charging stations can be, there's other ways to compromise it, but Log4j is now a gaping attack vector in a lot of these. That might be able to get updated more easily, but the fact of the matter is, we don't know exactly what effect it'll have on vehicles, because newer vehicles, like the ECU network, the CAN bus network, most manufacturers and OEMs have done a good job with kind of segmenting the network and hardening it, but some older vehicles not as much. Right. So it can be anything from like tricking the vehicle into thinking it's charged when it's really not, so you run out of charge down the road. I don't know, right? All the way to potentially having a detrimental effect on a different ECU that can control, I don't know, like drive-by-wire functionality, or maybe some other kind of functionality of the connected vehicle. It's kind of scary because, again, manufacturers don't all do the stuff the same. The onboard networks. So, yeah, I think that'll be fixed much quicker, but the damage might already be done, and I don't even know.
Yeah.
So
that's the scary part, is not knowing, I think, is the hardest part. And we both know people like Alyssa Knight who used to focus strictly on that type of stuff, right? The connected cars and the automated systems. And it's funny, but kind of I guess in a really weird, twisted way, comforting that the predictions that I made for 2022 are not very far off already. You talk about plants and Log4j and some of that stuff. My predictions for 2022 was infrastructure was going to be targeted, and so far, I've been on 2 incident responses, one for a law enforcement group and the other one for a transit company. So I mean, already countries are using, and I say countries, and we'll dive into that later, but countries are using Log4j in very interesting ways to gain the foothold that they need in these infrastructure groups, which is scary.
Yeah. Yeah, with especially some of these that might be or that are nation state backed, right? So they have the limitless funding or resources, to carry these attacks out. Yeah, it just opens up a new vector for international cyber war. I feel like that term is kind of cliche because it's used so much and means so many different things, but it's one more way for someone to fuck over someone else.
Yeah, totally. And I think,
which is par for the course.
Yeah, and I think this year, I mean, I talked about geopolitical issues globally causing more internet and technology issues and outages, and already we've seen Russia attack the Ukraine with ransomware, the Ukrainian government, and we're starting to see a lot more geopolitical tension globally, not just with Russia, but also with China and Taiwan, and places like that, in Cuba with the Havana Syndrome. And then you throw on top of that a really bad vulnerability like Log4j. We've seen vulnerabilities from that flared up during the pandemic when everybody started working from home, like VPNs. And you and I talked briefly about VPN and the issues that we have there. Why don't we dive into that a little bit on the VPN side of it?
Right. So I'm not as aware of any VPN providers or software specifically that is vulnerable to the log4j specifically. But I think there have been some attacks, I guess, in the more contemporary timeline that have their access point was be able to leverage VPN that was either improperly configured, or they were able to somehow, get the certificates necessary to access something they shouldn't be. But the things that have been sticking out to me with the VPN is, well, the newest, one of the newest things in the VPN news, VPN Labs, which was just shut down by Europol.
Mm-hmm.
They had seized all their domains and servers, basically shut them down because apparently they were working with criminals to. I'm working with criminals, but they weren't taking action. Like, they were being asked to take action, be like, hey, be mindful of your shit. Some bad things are coming out of it. And these kind of raise a lot of questions to me about just the state of, current and future secure networking technology, because the way it is here in the US is that if the Glow Boys come up to you and say, hey, we need your stuff, and they subpoena you, it's like, okay, whatever, they're doing, stuff within the law to ask you, and you provide whatever documentation that's there, right? So you have to work with them, or else you get shut down, and then worse, there's some sort of legal action taken against you. It just raises a lot of questions of like the state of it. It's like VPNs are this solution. You just have like regular consumer VPNs to watch British Netflix and British Bake Off and all that shit. Then you have industrial VPNs, which are a little bit different. It's not the same kind of like category. However, the idea is still the same. That secure networking technology. VPNs, I think they're great for a sense of security.
Right.
But the fact is, you're really just moving trust from your ISP to a whole new entity, and that entity can see what you're doing. And any no logging policy is just that. It's a policy. You can just, turn on Zeek or Bro onto a whatever interface, or consuming the consumer traffic. That makes sense, but that sounded weird. Yeah, and you can just run some kind of deep, do your own kind of like internal DPI and what's coming in, and you wouldn't be none the wiser. And I don't know, there's a lot of like kind of moral and ethical things that come into mind, where it's like, not only that, but then everyone can be using your VPN to do something bad. Then I started thinking, well, shit, why aren't ISPs getting dinged?
Exactly.
If that's really the case, because the internet is a great thing, and it's a horrifying thing at the same time. And yeah, it's like why doesn't whatever local ISP get dinged because I don't know, went on tour to do something or whatever. It's kind of a light example. I don't know. It's raised a lot of questions to me, and seeing Europol shut down this VPN Labs company, it's kind of a bit of a scary thing to think of as someone who runs secure networking infrastructure technology.
I mean, it's kind of shocking. It's kind of shocking too. Like, so I was living in Dallas, and there was a data center that I had some friends that had devices and stuff in there, and without any kind of notice, without any kind of documentation, the FBI walked into that data center in Dallas and literally took every server that was there, and didn't let them know why. There was multiple companies that were based in that data farm, or whatever, that data center, but come to find out, I guess there was a huge organized crime ring that was being ran through that data center, and nobody knew about it. But guess what? Every server got grabbed, and it was because it was attached to the same network, and they wanted everything. They didn't want just specific devices; they wanted the whole thing. So this data center literally went under because of it, which I can understand to a certain extent. But then walking in and shutting down somebody's business and their livelihood just because there's a criminal or potentially criminals on that connection. I mean, I think you're right. With ISPs, how many times should the ISP have been shut down or servers warranted when I was younger? Probably most of them, because we were using ISPs to carry out bad shit for a long time before we even had the Tor network. But now, I mean, we all know that most of the Tor network, the exit nodes, there's a good number of them that are ran by federal agencies that, they don't have to take anything because you're going through their exit node and they can see it anyways. But I think you're right. That sets a really scary precedence where, law enforcement or anybody can just walk in and basically destroy an ISP or a provider based on something that could potentially be going on.
Yeah, and I think too that in that situation that you just cited, when they walked into the data center and yoinked all the servers I don't, and again, like this could happen a lot of places. I'm just not aware of it, and I'm totally open to that if that's the case. But I feel like when it comes to any kind of like federal prosecution that I know of, it seems that they need a high success rate. Like whenever the federal courts or whatever are, they have like a 90% success rate. And if they think it's going to be below that, they just like, kind of shoo it off to like a local, court or something. In that case, they probably believe they had the vindication to do that, but at the same time, and they might have, right? Like they might have been correct in doing that, maybe, but at the same time, think of all the information that they got from all the other services and business processes that they can now, look at and reverse engineer of all these other companies that have nothing to do with the services that were used for the crime ring that you said there. And that's the thing I don't like, that collateral, not just a collateral damage, but the kind of collateral effect in general. It's like, now I have all your stuff, even though you're no part of this, which means they likely, they didn't, they probably didn't subpoena these things, or they probably hit the data center itself, not just the company, which sucks because everything's in that data center. It is fair game. Everything in that data center is fair game. So, that's shit.
I mean, you really have to think twice about who your data center provider is, and this was a very young startup type data center, very small, handful of companies resided in it. So, I mean, someone didn't do their due diligence. Like, the first thing I would have done was go to try to check out the data center and the people that run it and own it. Look at the Russian business network. That was an entire network of nothing but criminal, activity. And I think we probably have some of those data centers still around that conduct that type of business. But for some reason or another, the feds or like you say, Europol or whoever are just not interested in that group yet. Which, I don't know if you saw the video from the arrest of Revel, but to me, like that was so strange, and it looked so scripted. And even if it wasn't, I think it was just a way for Russia to say, hey, we're kind of bending to what you want. And by the way, we have all these troops sitting on the border of Ukraine. How about just a little bit of, we did some shit for you, now you do some shit for us type of expectations. And I think a lot of that goes on in law enforcement and government, to be honest.
I would tend to agree with that, especially with international governments too, right? Like I think of Five Eyes, where it's like
Australia, Britain,
US, Canada, New Zealand, and one other, I forget.
Yeah.
It's Five Eyes. I can only remember Four Eyes. Get it? Glasses. Hey. I can't. That's why I work in Python and C, because I can't see sharp.
Nice. I like that.
That's, yeah. When I used to teach, that would be a joke that I killed for my students, because I'd say it a lot. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So, I think that kind of justification of cyber, shutting down cyber criminals, maybe there was another company of interest.
Yeah.
That was in that data center too, or I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I mean, doing due diligence and some form of risk assessment on the data center that you're using, I think is important. I think on the flip side, there could have been the rationale of, hey, this is a young data center. They might not have a lot of the security maturity in there yet, so I can get away with some stuff. Right. But then if you were to go to a larger data center that's running, things from, like big Fortune 500 companies that aren't running their own infrastructure, or just outsourcing some of that processing to different data centers or whatever, that might also be kind of like a fly under the radar kind of move as well. You just be careful with what you're sending out of that data center kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, there's different rationales. I mean, I could see either one working. It's just, that tells me from like my old days in PSYOP, we would have a process for, like, we would collect propaganda, and then we'd have a process to analyze it. And there's been two processes. There's been Marco and SCAME. Marco is just an acronym that means media, media, audience, response, content, observed effects, something like that. I normally use SCAME, which is a source, content, audience, media, and then the effects of that, right? So the idea being, whenever you get a piece of propaganda, you analyze it to try and get into the head of the people that are putting it out there. Right. And so to me, that these cyber criminals that you were talking about likely did not have a lot of, a whole lot of technical juju going on there. And we're like, well, it's just going to be easier if we, do this immature data center versus having to really, dot our Q's and cross our P's with a big data center, right? So, yeah, true. Kind of that, psychological reverse engineering to an extent. But
yeah, I know they used to use like, now a lot of the attackers will use AWS and stuff like that to host malicious code. Back in those days, I think a lot of it was try to find the cheapest data center, try to find the cheapest ISP that won't rat you out. But even some of like the Log4j that I'm seeing now, there was one that I was doing some investigation on this week, and one of the IP addresses that the machines were calling out to was hosted on AWS, and it was malicious code. And I know from experience that AWS doesn't necessarily do a whole lot of checking when it comes to what's being hosted on their platforms. I may or may not know somebody who had some malicious code up and running reverse shells for months without Amazon even picking it up. But I would hope that as time goes by, things get a little bit more, I guess, comprehensive when it comes to looking at code and looking at things that are hosted, not just on AWS or ISPs, but also like Google Play Store and the Apple Play Store.
Yeah, and so doing a little devil's advocate here, the more comprehensive with the monitoring, or the kind of stuff that like AWS would be doing, I think right now, like, I don't really know like what their privacy policy is, and something I should probably read at some point, but I've worked with AWS before. Not so much now, so it's not a prevalent thought in my head to do so, but it could just be that really they're just monitoring the network IO, and that's what indicates something. I would be livid if I was hosting something on AWS that's running proprietary code that I write for business reasons, or code that is written by us for business reasons and running on AWS or something, I'd be pissed if I knew they were looking inside that. Right. Now, I do know that AWS does have like control mechanisms. I forgot what the hell it's called, but it's a thing that allows you to, there's a agent in the instances that you spin up. And there's that kind of hook into the instances that the UI has. So you can stop, start, restart, reprovision drives, yada, yada, that kind of stuff, right? Even that is scary to an extent because you don't know what else they're doing, right?
Right.
I mean, granted, you can just turn that thing off, but then it disconnects it from the UI and, you're stuck SSHing into it and then not really having a path of recourse if you accidentally brick the fucking machine or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I still think a little bit scary if they were to be looking in the machine, but I think more maybe some additional measures into the network monitoring to see what's going on. I think they have that down to begin with, though.
Yeah.
I'd imagine so for a freaking huge hosting provider of that magnitude. But yeah, I mean, there's many ways too of just making traffic just look negligible. Right. Innocuous interactions aren't really going to bring up red flags, and so you get to this weird area of like what's in the meta and what is normal baseline for that node or not. It's the stuff like that. I don't really know the efforts and they can go through and the money they can spend to really dedicate to that, though. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was really amazed to see that a malicious APK could sit on an AWS server and people access it for months on end without anybody stepping in, which is shocking, right? I know from other experiences, you do that on an ISP and they're more than likely to shut you down. But with AWS, I was really shocked. I was like, wow, they're really going to let this individual host this APK on that server for months and get reverse shells, but nobody's going to stop him. It's really weird. So 2022 brings a lot of guesses on what's going to happen. There's a lot of potentially earth-changing decisions being made just right now. What do you think 2022 brings to the table for cybersecurity?
I think critical infrastructure agencies, so like your power, water, transportation. I've seen just a big scramble to fix as much stuff and plug all the holes in the sinking boats as they can. I say sinking boats just as a metaphor because that's why you would plug the holes. Not that they're sinking, but I think there's going to be at least in the industry, in the market, there's going to be a lot of people capitalizing on this kind of scramble to plug everything up. You might get a lot of people that are maybe not so good trying to get work doing that, and it might be a mediocre job that they do. But I think generally speaking, you'll see a scramble to fix everything. You'll have these pervasive RCEs attacks. I kind of feel like every few years we get one, like whether it's Eternal Blue or Log4j. Just these, like, only time can tell when these RCE things can come up, and people might use them as a backdoor for stuff. I think now that the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act has gotten that bill got passed, and so now it's like law or whatever the term is. I think it's law or whatever. But There's going to be a lot of effort towards that, and that bill has a few good things in it, a lot of crap in it, and they have some really scary stuff in it regarding automotive monitoring, which scares the crap out of me.
Right.
So I think you're going to see a lot of I can talk a little bit more about the automotive stuff because that's something I've given a lot of thought about. So, okay, I'm kind of getting into a tangent here. So, okay, so to boil it down, you'll see a scramble of infrastructure agencies trying to plug as many holes as they can, putting out RFPs for, cybersecurity or having more cybersecurity in their RFPs and whatnot. And then that's the optimism in me coming out. I think if you have good people in the seat of, security officer, you'll probably end up having that. I think there's going to be a lot more concentration too on trying a lot of, vendors and manufacturers will have to meet certain things put out in this infrastructure bill, right? So I think 2022 is really just going to be a lot of work. And I think I think Log4j will probably be something leveraged for the for the long run of 2022, just because of its pervasiveness and how some entities can't just Thanos snap it away, right?
Right.
It's gonna be in there for a while, I would say that's really it for now.
Let's dive off into the automated car and the connected car situation. I know that's one of your hot topics.
Yes, it is. Okay, I see your time. All right. Cool. Yeah, I was just gonna say if we can do that really quick, that'd be awesome. Just gotta take a quick pit stop.
No.
So right.
Automated cars. Let's dive there.
Yeah. So before I get into my, old man with a tinfoil hat on yelling at the clouds and stuff here, I think. Have you seen? I think I know the answer, but have you seen? Watch that series, Black Mirror?
Yes, absolutely.
So, okay, perfect. Do you remember the episode Hated in the Nation? It had to do with the bees, the robot bees.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So, I talked about this at a conference, at a B-Sides conference, like 3 years ago. And I did a recent cybersecurity lunch learn where I also talked about it. It's like I think it was called When IoT Becomes Nightmare. And just, talking about that is to try and draw a mirror with how we're going with IoT. IoT and the hyper connectivity of everything from, IoT and IT, OT convergence, which I talked to Rob Lee, I think, a year ago or so, and he just called it hyperconnectivity, which I agree with. It's a good general encompassing term. But anyways, yeah. So for those that don't know, in this particular episode of Black Mirror, I think it was like the longest episode they had at that point, in as far as the show in general is concerned. Maybe another season after it had a longer episode, but that was like the longest episode at that point. And so the story there, it's in the near future, right? Where automated cars are about to be a thing that, so probably maybe like, I don't know, 10, 20 years, whatever, let's just say to be safe, within 20 years. And the entire UK, their population of bees just went virtually extinct. It was like colony collapse disorder. They had no idea why it happened. So there was this, there was a private tech firm that was funded by government subsidy to create autonomous robot bees that would go around and fulfill the same function, and you know, not sting people, which is cool. I think for that reason alone, I might be amenable to that solution. So I've been stung a lot by, well, really more so wasp. I've been stung by a bee once. Anyways, not important. But in this episode, the private company that had the government subsidies to build the ADIs, the autonomous drone insects, the government had required that they implement a back door for their federal glow boys to be able to do mass surveillance on people and stuff. These bees had like a tiny visual sensor, but they had a lot of there was a lot of data gathered, just shit ton of metadata. I mean, I feel like that kind of comes par with the course. It was these bees are pervasive. They encompass the entire UK. Like, why not just do mass surveillance, you know?
Exactly.
And so in that episode, there was some social media game where you put a hashtag and the person that you want dead. And if enough people, you know, hashtag called out someone, they would just die publicly, either very publicly, or it would be made public soon after. Anyways, the idea here being, I get scared when I see solutions proposed that are extremely pervasive, and they affect things that we cannot just snap our fingers and do without, like motor vehicles and connected vehicles.
Right.
I don't know, for the past 30 something years, or 30, you know, the amount of time I've been alive, so somewhere over 30 years here, cars have been getting, becoming increasingly autonomous, right? Like the framework for making the self-driving car has just been growing and growing. It was drive-by wire is now, it's now, electronic, handled by ECUs. Your accelerator, it accelerates, decelerates, brakes based on electrical input and the pressure that you put on the pedals, right? Then you have that with steering. Then you have that with everything else that used to be more of a physical, mechanical thing is now a lot more electronical, controlling the mechanical.
Yep.
So over time, like new cars now have like a metric fuck ton of ECUs or engine control units. The computers that are running these small operating systems to do a very specific thing for a very specific area of the vehicle. So whenever I see acts like this, I'm citing specifically the infrastructure investments and jobs bill that was passed. There is a lot of pages in here. I've only read a few of them. Section 24220, advance impaired driving technology. And what in here, section A, they just say findings, a lot of people die in drunk driving, which is true, and it causes a lot of damage, loss of life. On its face, this idea seems like a good one, right? But in the definitions, section B, subsection B of section 24220, their definitions in the section is, I'm going to read it verbatim here. So, advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention technology. The term advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention technology means a system that can passively monitor the performance of a driver of a motor vehicle to accurately identify whether that driver may be impaired and prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if an impairment is detected. And then additionally, passively and accurately detect whether the blood alcohol concentration of a driver of motor vehicles equal to or greater than the blood alcohol concentration described in section 163A of Title 23 U.S. Code, blah, 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 and prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if a blood alcohol concentration above the legal limit is detected. or in combination.
So how are they going to do this? Because that sounds very fucking invasive.
Yes. And so I don't think it's going to be so much as, like now, right? If I have, like 8 more of these and I go, I don't know, go treat I-95 as like a racetrack. I get into a lot of trouble for that, right? And under the circumstances, I may or may not have to have a breathalyzer in the car to prove to the man that I'm going to drive, right? And but I don't think it's going to be anything like that. I think it is going to be more of monitoring. So like I think some cars, I want to say Tesla, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Teslas have a visual sensor that can be like, oh, you look tired or sleepy or something, right? And it could just be like, no, I'm looking at that accident that I just tried to avoid.
Right.
And they're very nuanced things.
To me, it sounds like more of a not minority report, but more of the machines are going to actually be involved in monitoring, maintaining, and even conducting everyday routines for us, like the embedded machine that determines if you can or can't drive. Like, I don't think that should be a machine decision. I think that should be a human decision, not a machine.
Yeah. Oh, I just turned my Xbox on. It wants me to play it. It's calling to me now. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, the way I see it, right, is that there's going to have to eventually be some kind of baseline gathering, right? Like even right now you have like these car insurance companies that have dongles you can put in your OBD2 port. Right. And it just powers the damn thing so it can track your GPS and speed and all that kind of stuff and make sure that you're a safe driver and a good boy to get, decreases on your insurance premiums and all that shit. Which, by the way, some of those have actually been very exploitable. Different story, but I think the progressive one was really bad at one point. Because I've done tests on different OBD2 dongles, and a lot of those have a lot of work to be done. But yeah, gathering a baseline of your normal driving habits, and when you start going outside of that, then it starts, kind of throwing up red flags. And it's like, well, what if I'm just on a bad road? Like, what if I'm driving on a bad road, or what if there's hopefully you would assume they would correlate that with data from GPS like Google or Waze or whatever. The same way that they correlate all the GPS locations to tell when traffic is slow and stuff like that. However, I don't see this as the language is also extremely vague as well. So this can mean almost anything.
You can stuff a lot of stuff into it. If it's vague, the government can also push other, agendas into that bill.
One of the things, so yeah, that kind of machine-driven decision of whether or not you're like impaired or like too tired or something, it's not always going to be the case. I don't really see any room for nuance here. And at the same time, they also have this provision in here: prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if an impairment is detected. And that also kind of scares me because like, what if you've got a visual sensor in the car? I'm drinking one of these, and then it thinks I'm drinking one of these, and it's like, stop the car. And I'm doing like 70 miles an hour on the interstate. Yeah, and I just stop and I get slammed. Like, that's not going to work out too well. And another thing too is that the OEMs are likely to not have, at least in my experience of looking at how OEMs do stuff, not have a central standard or way of doing this. So different manufacturers are going to do different things. I think even like right now, there's like a OEM that with their newest model of vehicle, you have to actually pay to do an auto start with your key fob. Like,
Really?
what the fuck is that? Yeah, Louis Rossmann. If you go on YouTube, Louis Rossmann had talked about this. He's a huge right to repair guy.
Mhm.
And often right to repair is fought against by big tech companies. It's like, but what about security? You know, but yeah, it's like if you buy something, you should own it and not have it own you, right?
Right, right.
I do. So I see this as a potential, you know, Black Mirror, hated in the nation, B kind of situation.
Yeah.
Where you have these some people have called it a kill switch.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just like a limp mode where it just detects where the nearest shoulder is and stops you there. I don't know, but I think the very fact that you're introducing that into connected vehicles where, you know, everyone and their families are going to be riding in, I think you're going to have a lot of people hurt because of ineffective ways these things are done.
Or even malfunctioning. Think about the malfunctioning portion of it. You know, we all know computers can go haywire, cars can go haywire. Imagine that type of functionality in a vehicle with a family. And let's say somebody yawns and it doesn't get the calibration right and it shuts down the car because somebody's yawning. But it's not a gradual, let's find a shoulder, let's stop it right here. You know, I can totally see where that's going.
It's like, stop the car, we gotta yawn.
Yeah. But even
like
so,
at the wrong,
but even so,
the wrong person.
Oh yeah, but even so, like take that same example, and let's say it's legit, right? You have this type of control mechanism in the car for maybe impaired drivers, right? But here's the point: is if something remote can access that module and tell that machine stop here because this is happening, what keeps that car from letting me do it, and I'm not the actual controller? You know, we saw that with the entertainment systems and the onboard entertainment for some vehicles like Jeep, and they were able to drive the Jeep off the road just connecting to its onboard devices.
The 2014 Jeep hack, yeah. The company that I used to work for, Block Harbor Cybersecurity, that was like their point of conception of that company was that incident.
Yeah.
That was a scary thing. Like I said before, some motor vehicles didn't properly segment areas of the CAN bus network.
Yep.
So you can get in through a dongle. Could be an insurance dongle. It could be some kind of diagnostic tool. It could be just an insecure application in the IVI, the in-vehicle infotainment center. And yeah, that was a scary thing. And luckily, you know, I won't say luckily, like fortunately, manufacturers have fixed a lot of this in their newer vehicles. But it's still not perfect because
it sounds like they're re-implementing it as well, right? So they already had that type of system, but with this new legislature, they're going to put more in.
Yeah, and I feel like the same way that in the Black Mirror episode, the government had alternative interests. They were like, yeah, pollinate the plants and shit, but also watch the people.
Yep.
I think a lot of it'll be passive, but just think about how, you know, dissidents will be treated. Think about the journalists right now that get rated because of some innocuous thing or some kind of, you know, political dissent, something that just gets some kind of like ham-fisted response by the Glow Boys, you know.
Yep.
It's like, we know this person drives this vehicle, and I mean, vehicle tracking, even it's not even like super advanced right now. I mean, besides if you have access to GPS and all that, sure, but if there was something I was looking at, are you familiar with the Weigel.net, the Weigel project, the war driving app?
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of connected vehicles have their own IP addresses and stuff, like their own network names. Sorry, their own network names. I could be driving on the interstate or just through town here, and I can be running the ward driving app, and I can see the network name for a vehicle that's right next to me. I can just log it, and then, if enough people are running WIGL in the same area, we're driving around me, just for example, I can figure out where you live, where you work, where you shop, everything,
Yep.
and that's community driven. Now think about the stuff you want to put in here. For me, the data inputs are probably going to be a visual sensor. It's going to be your GPS. It's going to be gathering the data on, how many turns you take can also be indicative of what you're doing, where you're going, right? Like all these things. Maybe even sensors in the seat that go, normally he sits like this, but now he's sitting like this.
Right.
Like that. Why would that stuff not be, appetizing to powers that be? And in the Black Mirror case, if you have back doors to stop or affect a vehicle, Black Mirror, that was Hated the Nation. That was an insider attack by someone who used to work at the company.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he found a way to persist in that network, and he stayed there for a long time, hurting people.
I freaked out when they first got OnStar. That to me was shocking, because you look in your rearview mirror and you can see the remnant, or just a slight circle behind the mirrored glass, which was a camera. And there was microphones all over the vehicle, and come to find out, they weren't activating the OnStar network or the emergency features just when there was an emergency. I mean, there were straight up people who were getting arrested and getting in trouble for working for OnStar and accessing these cameras just randomly. So if they have the capability of doing that, who else has that capability with more nefarious mindset than just looking into a vehicle? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it, any of these pervasive safety or security measures that are just going to be everywhere, like Amazon Ring sidewalk program, where if you have an Amazon Ring and a camera, you can link to other cameras. Okay, well, now you have network devices that can see other, like the SSIDs, and see my Wi-Fi, see all the other shit that I'm running, right? Because I'm using, some things are wireless, some things are Ethernet connected. But that data, it's all metadata that can be tracked and harvested. But then the more insidious layer is when you have measures like this that give organizations, but give someone the power to stop a vehicle on the road when you don't know what that situation. And like, what if I'm doing a bunch of off-roading, or do I have to go to the DMV and say, hey, deactivate my bullshit tracking for like 5 hours or something? I don't know.
Reminds me of banking. And if you make a transaction that you don't normally make and they shut your shit down, I can't count how many times that's happened when I was doing something legitimate. And they're like, I would call Wells Fargo back when I was with Wells Fargo and say, wait a minute, dude, I'm just in the line for Jack in the Box. I mean, why the fuck did you shut down my card? Well, sir, you don't normally make that purchase at this time. And I'm like, bro, so I have to tell you which restaurant I'm gonna eat at? Like, that's bullshit. But same thing with car.
We saw you yawning. It's like, yeah, I was on the way to get fucking coffee.
Right.
It's like, I'm in the Starbucks line right now. I'm getting a grande frappadappa thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, venti words.
But it's all about the prediction of human behavior, and the government and other agencies want to be able to predict what you're going to do. And I think a lot of this, technology for security, or we want to keep you safe in this area, started really increasing after 9/11. Like a lot of things were taken from us because of security. Well, we need to monitor these transactions. We need to do this for you to ensure that you're not going to be affected in a negative way. But slowly that became, we want to be able to have that access just because we want to know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah, the Patriot Act. quite patriotic, you know.
Tell on your neighbor.
Yeah, it's like they named these acts like really nice sounding names, like the Patriot Act. I think a couple of years back, Bill Barr, who I forgot his exact position, but under the last administration, he had either proposed or was a huge proponent of this thing called the CARES Act, which was basically a way to force backdoors into encryption.
Yep.
And I was like, well, Australia did that, and I don't think we should do that. Yeah. I know a couple of people out in Australia, and I know you do too, and that tell me some of this stuff, because they're like, oh, what is Deffoant Networks? What does it do? Oh, consumers wouldn't be able to use that.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit, okay. Another thing to think about. Yeah, I said this on the last podcast. My opinion hasn't really changed that much on it, that I think the government's capable of doing a great net good, but they also do other stuff that is not good.
Yeah. I mean, just look at Snowden, for example, an X-key score. So he gets ran out of the country and is out on the run and exiled. And they come to find out in the appeals court, they found out the X-key score was actually unconstitutional and illegal. But they still will not let him come back to the country without being arrested, even though what they did, the program he snitched on, was determined to be unconstitutional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's... I can't purport to like know the reason why, but I think, just speculation here. You piss off a lot of people in the deep state. They're not gonna want you to play on their court.
Yeah.
And if you do, then he said multiple times, if he gets a fair trial and all that stuff, he'd be willing to come back.
Yeah.
Though I was extremely pissed off when he did not get pardoned. A couple last year, right? Or early last year. I was also very pissed when Julian Assange didn't get I know he's not an American citizen, right? But Julian Assange, and also to an extent Russ Ulbricht. Him too. It's a bit more of a cloudy, murky thing, right? But it's still, there's a lot of questionable things that that situation just sucked. And not that I think he was always doing the right thing there, but still, I mean, at this point, what purpose does it serve to keep holding him? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's all about control, I believe. Well, man, we're at the end of the hour, and as usual, I appreciate you coming on. We always have some really interesting conversations. No telling where those conversations will end us up at. You're welcome anytime, by the way. And any questions or any last thoughts for the show?
Yeah. For those of you that are involved with any kind of infrastructure projects or any kind of projects that have or efforts that have wide-reaching impact, always just give everything you look at a second thought. Every solution you deploy, every policy that you're adhering to, question as much as you can, because the long-term implications of what we do now are going to be things that affect our future generations. So if we start doing things under the guise of safety and security, which are two good words, by the way, but that end up having, we don't want to be part and parcel. I don't want to be part and parcel of contributing to dystopian infrastructure and robbing the freedoms of today, because my kids and their kids will not have those freedoms tomorrow. So just be mindful wherever you're at, wherever you're working, whatever you're doing. Just question things, yeah, freedom first.
Awesome. Awesome.
So
Well, I appreciate it, Mike. And, I wish you good luck this year and with all your endeavors. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again sometime in the near future.
yeah, hey, it was great being on. Definitely looking forward to the next one. I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, these conversations are always interesting because especially with our infrastructure experience. I mean, we can talk all day about this shit, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is the most worthwhile endeavor in the world, is trying to, make the future generations as safe and secure in the freedom sense as possible, right?
Absolutely.
So that just kind of ties into what I said earlier. But yeah, no, I appreciate it. It was good. It was
Cool.
It was real, and it was fun, and it was real fun. So
Awesome.
yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
All right. Well, until next time, guys, that'll be it for the Haunted Hacker podcast. Look out for some more videos to drop soon. And don't forget to subscribe on the YouTube channel. We're trying to make 1,000 subscribers. Right now, we're at 900. So 100 more, and the podcast can start benefiting from YouTube. Anyways, everybody stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you, man.